Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nicole, originally from London, UK, and I have been living in Milan for over 10 years and working as a freelance English teacher. I'm here with Guido,
Oh, hi, everybody.
and Guido is a linguist, bilingual with English and expert in Chinese language and
Oh,
translation.
how many titles? Yes, correct.
Not long ago, I met Guido at a language aperitif. We started talking about bilingualism with its pros and cons. So I asked Guido to be interviewed one day to know a bit more about bilingualism, and now here we are. Hi, Guido.
Oh, hi, Nicole, and thanks for having me here. I remember indeed that during the language aperitif, when was it? 6 or 7 years ago, you asked me to be interviewed about bilingualism, as you were hearing many people speaking English then. You were wondering why there are people speaking English in a good way, notwithstanding all the stereotypes standing behind Italians speaking in English. And yeah, so thanks for having me today.
It's a pleasure to have
Oh,
you
pleasure
here.
to me. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
No worries.
When did you realize to be bilingual?
Okay, let's start. No, we'll see, guys. So she's starting with not very easy questions, but let's try to give an answer. Um, Being bilingual is sometimes as a premise, Nicole, because sometimes people need to be guided in the understanding. Being bilingual sometimes can be something conceived as something to be reached through a test, or there must be native speakers guiding you in literally attesting your bilingualism. But I think bilingualism can be reached when you realize that you can manage two languages perfectly, in the sense that when you speak one language, you also think in one language. And think in that language means to use that language a specific language imagery and world categorizing. I was in Australia when I realized to be bilingual, and literally from night to day, I was even able to shift from English into Italian or vice versa without particular efforts. And it was a victory for me, but yeah, it didn't happen so recently because I was in Australia, yeah, 10 years ago. Yeah.
As an Italian, have you ever had a problem being hired by private or public English schools in Milan?
Well, um, bilinguals can be teachers. Bilinguals can work also in other job sectors. Um, Initially, I was not even thinking to become a teacher, Nicole. Let's be honest. But because, as you know, you are a teacher yourself, so being a teacher, knowing the language you teach in a good way is not enough, because you need other skills, for example empathy, compassion, in the sense that to be able to read the student's heart, the student's exigencies. You need devotion to your job. You need constant preparation. Any type of procrastination is off. So every week you need to prepare a lesson, to calibrate the content of a lesson. So I was not actually considering myself as suitable for this kind of role. But indeed, after I started teaching the language, but the more I was teaching and the more I was not feeling good at it. So I remember in 2018, I interrupted the everything, and I decided to say, well, let's do something else. And I went to the Netherlands and the UK for a double master's degree in public relations and digital communications management, because my goal was not using English for teaching, but I wanted to become something different, like a content writer, um, or public relations specialist, or working consultancy jobs. But soon I realized that it was not me as not suitable for teaching the languages. It was about the environment I was teaching language in, because they were all private schools. So where the fact of the learning was not very much taken into consideration. Well, they're just operating just for money reasons. So even the teachers were not considered enough, even in terms of what they were doing. But so I found my satisfaction in teaching when I started in 2021 my university career. Indeed, I am now contract lecturer of English in Brescia, and I am also contract lecturer of Chinese here in Milan. As my primary degree is in Chinese with ESL English, where ESL stands for English as Second Language. But I've always used English in my life, so in when I teach English, well, I don't teach general language, but I teach academic English.
But do you also teach academic English to your students in the classroom?
At university, yes. So when in Brescia we have a course called Lingua Inglese Uno, so English Language 1, and people, as it is a school for linguistic mediators, students arrive there with a certainly already high level of English, so they are ready to attend a course where something more in terms of English can be taught to them. So basically, I teach them how to write at academic levels, how to speak at academic levels. So we focus our attention on essays, short and long essays, and in the development of public speaking skills.
Did you have any difficulties finding private students as a freelance teacher?
Okay, so this question subintends the fact that now many teachers on a freelance basis are using many platforms for branding themselves. I know some of these platforms, and I am also on some of these platforms. For example, italki or Superprof, which is the most brandized in the landscape of the platform. But although I studied brand management, although I studied brand sensitivity, I've never been able to brand themselves efficiently as an English language teacher. And I'm on Superprof, so people can look for me. So I have an Italian name and an Italian last name. So it's Guido Anichini, but I have never received lessons requests, because there is this, let's say, stupid stereotype that only natives are able to teach English. So as soon as people see an Italian name, well, no, because he's Italian, and maybe I can feed some doubts in terms of hiring him as an English language teacher. So I have many positive comments about me. So people who had past collaborations with me, but maybe they are not convincing enough. Let's say so. Um, I've always relied actually on people passing the word about me and about my competence and skills, because it gives me more the sensation of the fact that these people have a motivation for requiring me as an English language teacher.
Do you think a native speaker can automatically teach the English language, or do they need some training, such as studying the TEFL or Delta or CELTA beforehand?
Well, apparently, this is one of the goals you wanted to reach for this interview, and I perfectly agree with that because it this is a conviction many people, especially Italians, do have, that speaking a language in a perfect way, so perfect perfection is not something is doesn't exist according to me. But people often think that just natives are directly able to teach English. Well, there can be natives involved in disciplines that differ from English language teaching: economics, law, engineering, and they don't have any inclination to teaching. So this is a myth that have to be defeated. Being a teacher, being a language teacher, um, requires knowing the language, but also developing some skills related to English language techniques, teaching techniques. That's why some teaching certificates do exist in the landscape of the many certificates the English language has. One is the TEFL, which means of teach English as foreign language. Then there is the Delta, the CELTA. So there are certificates well adequate for becoming a certified teacher because they all have a theoretical part where even some natives can reinforce their grammar knowledge, their language knowledge, and above all, their awareness on the language, and the practical part, which is either online video or online lesson trials, so video lesson trials, or literally in-person internships in schools.
In your opinion, why is there prejudice against Italians teaching English?
Well, because you also have in your, let's say, your teaching experience, even now you're teaching to many Italians, and more or less you realized what difficulties they bring on the field. Because there is the stereotypes that Italians are known for not having a good English. And most of all, because their approach to languages in general is just connected to a specific purpose, being it either being a personal purpose or a professional one. Sometimes it simply, with this kind of mentality, let's say, it generally loses the real value that learning a new language brings with itself, which is to enrich a person's mind and extend in a certain way a person's mentality, and making this person ambassador of a new language with its related new culture.
Do you think the English language in the UK is taught at a high enough level?
Well, Nicola, I thought when you introduced me, you forgot to say that together with Italy, I had the opportunity to live in many other countries.